question of whether I, as a whistleblower, should be pardoned is not for me to answer. But I will say this. I love my country. I love my family. And I have dedicated my life to both of them. These risks, these burdens that I took on, I knew were coming. And no one should be in a position to make these kind of decisions.
I love my country. Let's cross to Philip Crowther in Washington. How's Edward Snowden's plea going to go down inside the Obama administration?
I think it's fair to say that the country doesn't necessarily love Edward Snowden back, though there are a lot of fans of his and those who will defend him, and many who support this move toward a presidential pardon. It's interesting to note that Edward Snowden himself is not directly asking for this pardon. He says he deserves one. Others are making that plea directly. The reaction already exists from the White House. It doesn't seem to have changed all that much. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest spoke about this on Monday and might again do so today. He says that the president still believes that Edward Snowden should face charges under the Espionage Act for violating the Espionage Act on U.S. soil. So that point of view hasn't changed. But there had been a boost recently from the former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, who said that Edward Snowden, in his view, had provided a public service. And add to that, right now, as you just mentioned, the release of the film about Edward Snowden by Oliver Stone, the famous director, this week. And you'll have a lot of people at least talking about this and maybe trying to push the White House toward a presidential pardon. Remember, there's only very little time to go before President Obama leaves the White House in January.
Snowden, in his remarks by video conference, saying that Congress, technology companies have begun to act, in some cases for the first time, to protect privacy. Is that true, Philip?
Well, to a small degree, if he says so, then that is probably the case, because no one is more strict about these things than Edward Snowden himself. He is still somebody, albeit based nowadays in Moscow, who still calls out the government whenever it holds, for example, a secret hearing this week about what Edward Snowden revealed. So these are revelations he made, but that are only discussed in secret, and that was pointed out by Edward Snowden in a tweet just today. But these companies, the very big companies, the likes of Google or Microsoft or Apple, have been getting in trouble again relatively recently. So they are working with the government in a sense, but of course things have changed since Edward Snowden became the whistleblower, and he certainly thinks that he should get this pardon because he thinks that the American people and the British people, he mentions them directly because there are a lot of British leaks here as well, he thinks that they are better off now than they were before those leaks happened in the first place. Remember that the White House will be thinking about what Edward Snowden did as having had serious damage, not just to the intelligence services here in the United States, but also to several bilateral relationships between the United States and, for example, Brazil, or the most notable one with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. It was Edward Snowden who was responsible for that one leak that showed that the United States had been looking into Chancellor Merkel's phone.